The Dasamsa Varga is one of the Vargas that there's really nothing written about in any of the ancient texts. Brihat Parashar gives the calculations. Brihat Parashar gives the deities. A couple other texts give the calculations. No other texts give the deity. And then no texts ever refer to a technique or yoga that I can remember seeing that relates to the Dasamsa. So it's really a completely unexplained, unused Varga in the old text. All we really have on it comes from Brihat Parashar or Shastra. Now, in modern times, however, the Dasamsa is one of the most commonly used Vargas. You'll see, more astrologers use Dasamsa than any other Varga except for the Navamsa. And the reason they do that because they want more help with the career. And careers are such a tough nut to crack, they try to get as much help as they can, get that Dasamsa to help them. But the Dasamsa goes way above and beyond career, and it needs to be used with career just in the right way, and not overused for that purpose. Parashar tells us that the Dasamsa is for Mahat Phalam, which means great fruits, or big things, big events. So the big things in life are the things indicated by the Dasamsa. What are the big things? Well, the big things are the things that we are known for. Okay? So if somebody thinks of you, and what do they associate you with? Is it your beautiful wife? Is it all your money? Is it all your power? Is that you're a celebrity? Is that you're a politician with power? I mean, what is it? Because you have the coolest car, because you won the lottery, whatever it is. What do people associate your name with when they hear it? That's the big things about you. That's sort of your signpost. And that's what the Dasamsa is. Now, in many cases, the Dasamsa, the big thing that the Dasamsa gives is something that you get because of your capability, your ability to act in a way that gets you that thing. And that's what the 10th Bhava is about. The 10th Bhava, which the Dasamsa is the Varga for, is the Varga of, or is the Bhava of karma or action. So the 10th Varga is just another look at our actions and how capable those actions are. Okay? So capability is a big part of that Varga as well, just how good we can do something with a particular planet. But then it's not the only place to look for that. Okay? By capability means we act in a way that gives us a fruit. Okay, a good fruit. But essentially the Dasamsa is all about the big things in life, the big events, the big things we have. And that could be anything. And a person whose focus is career, like a politician, where everything they do has a effect on their career, for that the Dasamsa is especially important, because any grapefruits for them is probably going to be a career grapefruit, but not always. A politician may rise to a certain height but still be better known for something else in their life that happens, and that other thing will be shown in the Dasamsa. So the Dasamsa first is for seeing the big things that we become known for. It also has to see our capabilities, what we're more capable of, what we are more action-centered with, okay? And not always more capable, but of all of our skills, which ones do we really act upon? Which ones do we really use? Okay, which ones we do karma with, do we act with? That's what the Dasamsa looks at. Now, in modern astrologers tend to use the Dasamsa as a very focal point for predicting rise in life and success. And they'll do that along with the normal Raj Yogas that they learn in the Rashi chart. What they call Parashari Raj Yogas, the angle lords and trine lords, conjuncting and aspecting, those types of things, and maybe a few other Raj Yogas that they've learned. And maybe they use a couple other yogas like Lakshmi Yoga and Gajikasari Yoga and all these named yogas, all of which give some success. But the most important thing to judging a person's level of success in life is the Jaimini indications. How many Jaimini Raj Yogas do they have? How many Srimanta Yogas do they have? Do they have Argula, or they have obstructions to the Argula? All those things we talked about in the first 3 Jaimini courses are really important for seeing the level of success that a person might have. More important than anything else. More important than the Dasamsa. So you may see a relatively weak Dasamsa and the person will still be remarkably successful because Jaimini says they have a successful life. So we can't just use the Dasamsa for that. Then to really get a good grip on success, we want to learn the Jaimini stuff, learn to read the Dasamsa, and also learn to read the other Raj yogas that aren't in Jaimini and the important named yogas like Parivarta Yoga, all these, not Parivarta, what is it? Parijataka Yoga, all these other named yogas that I have in core yogas basically, which all give ability and success. And where the Dasamsa really shines though is for timing when periods of success come. It's especially good for that. So even though the Dasamsa might not show all the person's abilities or, the level of power they're going to have or success they're going to have, it very well shows the time of those great successes. And then we also need to use timings of those yogas that I mentioned too to see times of great successes. But the Dasamsa is a great tool for timing periods of the big things happening. Okay? So, a lot of widespread ramifications as usual with the Dasamsa. And again, we don't want to limit it just to 10,000 indications. It can give good things in regards to any Baba that's strong in the Dasamsa. Okay? So, the Dasamsas are easy to calculate. Parashar tells us. The Dasamsas from that. So, the 10 parts, there's 30 degrees in a sign. So, each sign is 3 degrees long. So, he says the 10 parts from that. So, the 10 parts from that. That means Aries starts at Aries, then goes Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Capricorn. The last 10th is Capricorn, the first 10th is Aries. That's for an odd sign. Then he says, in even, then from its 9th, it is taught. So on an even sign like Taurus or Cancer or Virgo, we do it from the 9th from that sign. So the 9th from Taurus is Capricorn. So the first Dasamsa of Taurus is Capricorn. Then it goes Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra being the last Dasamsa of Capricorn or Taurus. Then Gemini is an odd sign, so it starts at itself. The first Dasamsa is Gemini. And it goes around 10 signs with the last being Pisces. Then Cancer starts at the 9th from itself because it's an even sign, which is Pisces. So it starts at Pisces, goes around and ends at Sagittarius. So odd signs start at themselves and goes 10 signs from there. Even signs start at the 9th from there. And this is really a strange calculation. Why does Parashar calculate it in this strange way? Some people recommend in the Tajika text, the way they do it, is they calculate the Dasamsa exactly the same way as the Navamsa and Saptamsa are calculated. Which means, starting at Aries, the first Navamsa is Aries, and it goes Aries through Pisces once, Aries through Pisces twice, 3, 4, and does that 9 times. And the Saptamsa does the same way, Aries through Pisces, once, twice, and does that 7 times. And in the Dasamsa, they'll go Aries through Pisces, which means Aries will end at Capricorn, and Taurus starts at the sign after Capricorn, which is Aquarius. And Taurus will go from Aquarius to Scorpio. Scorpio ends Taurus, and then the sign after Scorpio, which is Sag, starts Gemini. So it's just a regular order method where we just go Aries through Pisces, Aries through Pisces, Aries through Pisces, Aries through Pisces, until we've gone around the chart. Now, that method mathematically makes a lot of sense, and it is one of the 2 preferred methods that Parashar uses in all the other Vargas, except for the Chapter Tamsha, which also he calculates in a really strange way. But in the Dasamsa, he creates this whole new way of calculating where he starts the even signs at the 9th from there. And philosophically, I can think of some reasons why he does that. Because odd signs are more self-initiated. And the 10th Bhava is a Bhava of action. And it's also a very similar Bhava to the first Bhava. In fact, 1 and 0, which is in 10, equals 1. So there's a lot of strong correlation between the first and 10th and first bhavas. So odd signs, which are more self-initiating in general, more masculine, independent signs, who like to do their own thing more in general, and who don't like to be told what to do and which are less receptive, are naturally going to initiate their actions from their own impulse. So the Dasamsa start at the odd signs. At the odd signs start at that sign. Even signs, however, are more receptive. So they're more inclined to be receptive and act upon things that they're taught or that they learn. Things that they're taught, basically. Who are they taught by? The ninth from their teachers. So the ninth house is the house of teachers. And so what they're taught, they're more inclined to follow that. Okay, follow that idea. Now, the ninth house and the 10th house have a strong relationship because the 10th house is the house of action that we think is worth taking. Why do we think an action is worth taking? Because the ninth house, our philosophy and our belief, makes us think that's a worthwhile thing to do. So our actions are very much dependent upon the ninth house. Our 10th house actions are dependent upon the ninth house. If a person has a good ninth house, they're more inclined to act wisely. If they have a bad ninth house, they're more inclined to do actions that are foolish because their philosophy supports doing foolish things, or they don't have a philosophy that supports good things. So there is a strong relationship between the ninth and 10th house. And of course, even in astrology, ninth house is father and parenting, and 10th house is father. So there's this mix-up of these ninth and 10th house things. So in the context of the Dasamsa, we can see why even signs go to start at the ninth, because the ninth house is the house of the teacher and the house of our philosophies that cause us to act. And the even signs are going to be more receptive to those ideas. So it starts from the ninth. Where the odd signs are going to be more self-dependent, more self-initiating, less receptive signs. And so they're going to be impulse to do more based on their, or prone to act more upon their initial impulse, their personal impulse. So it starts at the first. How one student, Gurpreet, said it that I thought was sort of a neat way of saying it. Why does Parashara calculate the Dasamsa in such a strange way, an unusual way? And he said, how he looked at it is, great men do things in different ways. They do it differently, and that's why they become great. And that's very much true. Most things that are great because they're unique or different, and they have, but then they get well received too. But they start with the uniqueness. And so here we have this Varga, which has to do with great things, which are calculated in a totally unusual way that's completely out of sync with all other Vargas. So there is that sort of relationship, too, of just that this thing is calculated in a really funky way. So that's how we calculate the Dasamsa. And there is the other method, which is called the Parivritti method, which is when we just go around in the regular order from Aries to Pisces, Aries to Pisces, Aries to Pisces 10 times. Now, I have that one calculated in Kala, but I haven't found that one to work as good as the Parashara Dasamsa. And honestly, when I programmed it to try it, I thought it would work better, because mathematically it follows the other principles of Parashara, and it just mathematically makes a lot of good sense. But the Parashara method seems to work better. Okay? Mathematically, I'm trying to figure out what his rationale is behind doing it this strange way. Philosophically, I could understand it, as I've explained. But mathematically, how's he decide to go to the ninth is strange to me. It makes almost more sense to me if he decided to go to the 10th from there. Or something like that. And then make each of these a pair. But he doesn't. Or even it'd make more sense mathematically if the even signs went in reverse. But they don't. So it's just this weird chart that seems to actually work though. Okay? So that's how we actually calculate the Dasamsa chart. Now, each of the signs of the 10 parts have their divinity, as usual. The divinities of the Dasamsa are the 10 lords of the directions. So in Hinduism, we have 10 lords of the directions. We have the 8 directions, like north, northeast, east, southeast, and all that. Then we have the up direction and the down direction. The up direction is the zenith, and that's the point that we use in astrology, that if you look straight up, that's the zenith. And if you look straight down, the other point is the nadir. So those 2 directions, straight up and straight down, are also given divinities and related to these Dasamsas. Okay? I'm going to draw like a compass arrow here. Actually, I think I could dispose of this. I'll have a little more room to draw on the board. Okay, so here we've got our compass with the 8 directions. Over here on the east, we have the Lord Indra. Indra rules the first Dasamsa of an odd sign. Now, as Parashar says here, the 10 beginning in the east are the regions of directions. Indra, Agni, Yama, Rakshasa, Varuna, and also Maruta, Kubera, Ishana, Padmaja, and Ananta proceeded in odd, but in an even invert the order. So in an even sign, we reverse these orders. So in an even sign, it's the 10th Dasamsa that's ruled by Indra, okay, in the eastern direction. Then the second in an odd sign, I'll put south here so we get a little better picture, west here, north here. The southeast is ruled by Agni, okay, and then that's the second Dasamsa of an odd and the 9th of an even. Okay, then the third Dasamsa of an odd and therefore the 8th of an even is ruled by Yama, who rules the south direction. Then the southwest is ruled by Rakshasa, and that's the 4th Dasamsa of an odd sign and the 7th of an even sign. Some sources, non-astrological sources, Parashar is the only astrological source of this that I've seen, he uses the word Rakshasa. Some sources use the word Niriti, which is the goddess of destruction. Okay? She's more like a demoness of destruction. Then the 5th of an odd and the 6th of an even is Varuna. And he rules the western direction. Then the 6th of an odd and the 5th of an even is Maruta. And that's the northwest direction. Then up in the north we have Kubera, being the deity of the north, the Lord of Wealth. And that's the 7th of an odd Rashi and the 4th of an even Rashi. Then over here in the northeast, we have Ishana, which is the name for Shiva, and ruling the northeast. Then the straight up direction, which we call the zenith, is ruled by Padmaja, which means lotus born, one of the names of Brahma. And the down direction, the nadir direction, is ruled by Ananta, or Adisesha, the 1,000-headed serpent. Some sources of Hinduism give the nadir direction to Vishnu, but Vishnu is related to Ananta and sort of inseparable. And this, again, is the 9th Navamsha of an odd, 2nd of even, is the Padmaja, the Brahma Dasamsa, and the 10th Dasamsa, or the first Dasamsa of an even, is the Ananta northeast direction. Or, down direction. Okay. So, with the Dasamsa, we get an incredible amount of information. We first get all the deities that rule the direction. So we get these qualities given by the deities. Then we give a directional influence. And then the other thing we also have is the different planets rule slopes in different directions. So we also get some planetary information. The Sun slopes towards the east. Venus slopes towards the southeast. Mars slopes towards the south. Rahu slopes towards the southwest. Saturn slopes towards the west. The northwest is, I always get those mixed up still. Northwest is Moon, slopes towards the Moon. North slopes towards Mercury, and the northeast slopes towards Jupiter. So we get, with these deities and directions, we get three pieces of information to use. Okay? The first thing I'll do is just cover the nature of the deities and explain who those guys are actually. So the first is Indra. Now, old Hinduism, as found in the Vedas, is quite different than the Hinduism that we tend to relate to these days. The Hinduism that's common these days is the Puranic Hinduism, okay, which is really sort of a Kali Yuga form of Hinduism. The Vedic period, like if you read the Rig Veda, though they're praising deities in a completely different way, and they looked upon deities in a different way than the Kali Yuga Hindu did, and the modern Hindus do. Okay, the primary deities, worshipped in the Rig Veda are all aspects of nature, where the people of that period, seeing God in their daily lives, the most powerful forces of those gods were the gods was God taking different form in nature. So the important deities of that period had a real strong connection to nature. They were actually witnessed and seen in nature as active forces. Then in the Puranic period, all these strange mythologies became more prominent in the literature, and more intangible aspects of God that you couldn't see, but you could still have a relationship to through imagery and mythology and through stories. But in the Vedic period, they literally just witnessed God in nature. And as those periods changed, the gods from the Vedic period kind of became a little less significant or mutated into the visions we have of those same gods in the Puranic period. Okay? So, just so you understand where some of that's coming from, I like to look at the deities primarily from a Vedic period standpoint, because that's a much higher age where there's a lot greater wisdom during that period. So, Indra rules the east. Now, Indra is the god of the atmosphere, the god of the atmosphere. Okay, not the heavens, but the atmosphere, everything that's up in there. And he's one of the most praised divinities in the Rig Veda. And he's praised always as the destroyer of Bala, if I remember that demon's name correctly, who's this big black deity, and that takes away all the light. And Indra shows up with his Vajra, which is his thunderbolt, and slays this evil demon, this dark evil demon with his thunderbolt. And upon doing so, it rains, and the people are happy. Okay? And what is that story? Well, that's the story of the big black storm clouds coming in, the big black growling demon. Then Indra shows up with this thunderbolt, and you see the thunder crashing, and that's Indra slaying this demon. And then it starts raining, and as it rains, the clouds diminish and break apart and disappear. And so this whole mythology of Indra, he's the Lord of Rain, the god of the atmosphere that makes all those things happen up in the sky that give the rain, which to the Vedic culture was so critical for their survival because it was an agricultural society dependent on growing crops. And also for tribals who didn't grow crops, it was still essential for having enough food to forage from. Okay, so the rain was essentially important for their survival. So Indra became this huge divinity to worship. So when they saw the rains coming, they saw God is feeding me today. God is giving us the water that we need for our survival. And of course, God is doing that. And that's the truth. God is doing that. It's a powerful force that rules so many things in their life. So they acknowledged it. These days we tend to shut all that stuff out. Instead of just going out there and seeing God save our butts by it raining, we sit down to our little picture of Brahma, Shiva, or Vishnu, which is a picture that who knows if it even looks that way, right? It's an imaginary image. But we still can develop devotion towards that image. But we really, from a Vedic period standpoint, we want to learn to see that devotion when we see God in nature. And God is everywhere in nature, including within human beings, although sometimes it's really hard to see it there, right? But he's there everywhere. But the most important, the most powerful placements where people saw God is where they related these divinities to. And one of them was as rain and thunder, as thunderstorms that nourished them and gave them water to survive with. And so because of that, Indra became one of the most important divinities. Later on, during the Puranic period, Indra became the king of the Devas, meaning kind of the king of the angelic forces. But he lost his power in the sense of being as great of a divinity. He kind of got subordinated to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are, the creator, the preserver, or the supporter, and the destroyer. Those three are sort of the deities that run the whole show, right? Every other force is a force that they exert. So Indra, of course, is when he rains and crops grow, that's a Brahma force. When he strikes lightning and something burns, that's a Shiva force. So you see Shiva and Brahma work through lightning and thunderstorms and rain and everything. They work through that divinity of Indra. But in the Vedic period, they saw and respected the divinity as they saw it in nature. And so they got more attention to Indra because they saw Indra up there. They didn't see Brahma and Shiva and Vishnu pulling the strings behind that, so they didn't worry about that. So you can see religion during that time was just so pragmatic in a way. I see God, and therefore I'll call that God, instead of I don't see God, and therefore I'll think of a name for God. In the Vedas, they still recognize Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, but they're not praised as much. They're not adored as much. There's not as many hymns attributed to them, because they just weren't seen in their daily lives. Even though they were aware that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva were behind everything as the creator, preserver, and destroyer of everything that happened, they put their focus on what they actually saw. So it's just really such a practical religion in a way compared to how religion has gone to this ambivalent ideas and concepts that we can't see. And it is important to have that internal relationship spiritually, which we develop through yoga. But it is also important to be able to see God in our daily lives and everything that's happening around us so that we have happiness throughout the day. Okay? And not just happy when we finally get to have time to meditate or contemplate our little images. Okay? So that's Indra. Agni is the god of fire. Oh, the Indra Dasamsa. Indra literally means to conquer. So the Indra Dasamsa gives the ability to conquer and overcome any obstacles. Indra's been considered to be this amazing warrior, this undefeatable warrior. So the first Dasamsa of an odd or the 10th of an even gives that unconquerable spirit and that path to find success, to do something great, because that one's ability to conquer anything that's opposing that or to conquer a problem. And once that problem's solved, they create something wonderful. Okay? So it's all about conquering. Agni rules the southeast, the god of fire. Now, Agni, like Indra, is a prominent deity in the Veda. In fact, Agni and Indra are oftentimes used in the same sutras. They talk about them a lot together. Now, Agni is, just like fire's hidden in wood, and fire's hidden in everything. If you take something and throw it in the fire, it burns. So from the Vedic, people of the Vedic period, when they saw this stuff burn, they thought of fire is in this thing. Fire's in everything because everything burns at the right temperature. Everything will burn. So they really saw fire as being in everything. And so the Agni is this sort of, how did I write it here? It's the cosmic light that permeates all things. And thus it's the support of all things. Agni was seen as the thing inside everything that connects it and supports it and upholds it and sustains it. And how do they know fire's and everything? Real practically, because when you throw it in the fire, it burns. And how do they know that it's the fire that sustains something and gives it life? Because after everything's burnt, it all looks the same. It's just ash. Whether we burn me, a Hindu, a Muslim, or an African, when we're all burnt, we're just ash, right? So it was the fire that makes us who we are, that same fire. And that means all beings ultimately are the same. So seeing this connectivity that Agni gave, and also that connectivity is seen between wood and humans and everything that burns. It's that Agni that's connected and supporting it. It's the same in everything. So Agni is this idea of connectivity that gives a support to everything. Is that all-pervading divinity. And so it was always often praised, but one that's seen and witnessed in the fire as it burns and consumes. Okay? Also, Agni is considered the idea of, it also creates a sacrifice. The fire, as it burns things, is considered to take things to heaven. Okay, again, a really visible, witnessable thing as they feel the heat rise, and if you put your hand up, you'll feel the draft. So, from a practical point of view, burning things lifts them upward, right? So you see how this Vedic period, which is so practical in what's witnessing forces in nature and ascribing spiritual aspects to them. So Agni is that spirit hidden in nature that creates a connectivity and the similarity between everybody. And of course, we know in astrology, Agni rules the sun, or is the deity of the sun. And the sun is always the Paratman, the soul of all. That all-pervading divinity, the all-pervading soul. It's Agni, it's the same thing. Okay? That's the second Dasamsa of an odd and the ninth Dasamsa of an even. Now, this Dasamsa, the Agni Dasamsa, gives the ability for connectivity and support, both of which will provide success. So being able to connect, being able to find support, is what creates success with this Dasamsa. The south direction, the third of an odd and the eighth of an even, is Yama. Yama is considered the firstborn man. He was born from the sun along with his twin, Yami. And Yama was born lame, or maybe he became lame, but he's considered lame. For that reason, he's one of the divinities that has to do with Saturn, when Saturn, of course, is considered lame. Now, Yama literally means restraint, or literally means like a rein or a bridle that you have on your horse, that you use to restrain your horse and to control your horse. So Yama means to restrain or to control, and that's what this divinity does. He gives the ability for self-control and restraint. And ultimately, this divinity is responsible for taking the disembodied soul after death to the correct astral plane. So upon the point of death, Yama, throws the reins on our souls and drags our soul here or wherever it belongs for its astral life. And it represents that level of control. And for the yogi, Yama represents the self-control of putting the reins on the life force and pulling the life force in and moving it to the chakras where it wants to experience enlightenment. And this Dasamsa, the Yama Dasamsa, particularly gives self-discipline, self-control. Okay, the path of discipline that leads to success. Then the fourth of an odd and the seventh of an even Rashi is the southwest portion ruled by Rakshasa, the king of the Rakshasas. So this is the demonic, destructive being. It's also given to Niriti, the goddess of destruction, who is also considered to be the ruler of the Nakshatra Mula. Okay? Now this Dasamsa gives the power to ruthlessly destroy and overcome any obstacles to success. Now the greatest obstacle to success is when interferes, inner weaknesses, personal intimidation, that kind of stuff is what really holds us back. And this or family pressure or peer pressure, those type of things that make us feel like we shouldn't do the great thing we hope to do, whether it's internal or external. This Rakshasa Dasamsa gives success through overcoming and destroying those types of things. Okay? Then Varuna rules the west, and he's the 5th Dasamsa of an odd and the 6th Dasamsa of an even Rashi. Varuna means all-encompassing sky. It's the whole heavenly realm, what we in astrology would call the celestial sphere. So when you look out in the sky, everything you see is Varuna. Varuna is considered the preeminent deity in the Rig Veda. He's the one who placed the nakshatras in the sky. So he's the lord of the nakshatras, actually. In later mythology, Varuna becomes the god of the oceans and the waters. But in the Vedas, he's considered the most excellent and preeminent of all deities, as the primal maker and upholder of the universe. So, the primal maker and upholder of the universe, that is that all-enveloping sky. And that really makes sense, because all this big sky we see, this universe we see around us, and here we are, this little tiny ball in the middle of all that, with all this life, and all this emerged out of that great sky. All the dust particles came together, all the gases worked in such a way to create planet Earth, and this atmosphere, and our sun. All that came out of the sky. So Varuna is that idea that our life on Earth, our sun, all came out of the heavens, all came out of this all-encompassing sky. It somehow coalesced into this livable place. Okay? And that's exactly what happened. Scientifically, we know that to be true. And so the Vedic people, when they looked up at the sky, they saw their origins, basically. The maker and upholder of everything. And we know in astrology that everything is grown through the nakshatras. The nakshatra divinities are the consciousness that creates growth, that makes things grow and happen. But Varuna is the one that placed all those nakshatras in the sky to begin with. Okay? So Varuna can be looked upon as the greater force of consciousness that grows and creates the universe. It's that consciousness to grow and create. And that consciousness uses the 27 nakshatras to grow and create with. But the Varuna is the greater consciousness behind all that. Okay? So this Dasamsa gives the power for the consciousness to hold on to its vision until the envisioned goal is acquired. That's a critical thing, being able to hold the vision of what we hope to do, the great things we hope to do, and the great thing we hope to be. People who can't maintain that vision or can't create that vision fall into depression. People who have that vision and always are working towards that vision are happy. Okay? So this is an important assumption. The 6th of an odd and the 5th of an even is the northwest direction and ruled by Maruta, the god of the wind. Now the wind divinity creates change and also gives the strength with which to make change happen. And of course, this is a deity from the Vedic period, something we see in nature, the force of the wind and how it does things. How it can throw things around and move things around really quickly. This force for change and displacing things and moving things around. This is the deity of the wind. Okay? This Dasamsa gives the capacity to make the changes required for continued success. Okay? Always need to adjust things. Always things need to be shifted around and changed in order to have success, to maintain success. And this divinity gives us that. And change is such a critical thing to anything we're doing. If we want to do something great, well, that really means changing something, right? If we have a problem, how are we going to overcome that problem? By changing something, right? As one person says, one psychologist friend of mine, you can never solve a problem on the same level that the problem originated. You have to change to another level, and then you can solve the problem, okay? So, Maruta is this divinity that gives us that. And this is seen in mythology a lot, particularly with Hanuman, who's the son of the wind. So he's an incarnation of this divinity in a sense. He's the son of the wind, and it's Hanuman in the Ramayana that does all the great things, really, that makes all the amazing things happen. He does it all under the command and favor of Lord Rama, of course. But he's the one who does most of the miraculous, amazing feats, because he's so powerful and strong and capable. He has the strength of the wind to create changes. So that's Maruta. Then the 7th of an odd and the 4th of an even Rashi is ruled by Kubera, who's the lord of the north. So Kubera started out his religious fame as a king of the demons, as a demonic king, but he somehow rose to become the Lord of Wealth, and you know, that's who he is. He's the Lord of Wealth, and the Lord of Wealth. Why do we need a deity like that? Why do we need a deity, the Lord of Wealth? Everyone wants money. Well, because wealth is about having wealth and overcoming our lower tendencies, which is the demonic quality of Kubera, to using the wealth in useful ways. Okay? And not wanting wealth just for the purpose of wanting wealth, which is greed. And that's the demonic quality. I just want money out of greed. That's a demonic quality. Okay? Then there's wealth for the purpose of using wealth to create happiness and well-being. And that's why we need a divinity of wealth. Not to have us have wealth, but to have wealth in a divine way, which means to use that wealth appropriately, which allows us to enjoy the wealth, and also to use that wealth to make the world a better place. So that's what the Kubera divinity is about, right? Helping us raise from that greed tendency of wealth to using wealth as what it's meant to be, a tool for the betterment of our own lives and the lives of others. So this Dasamsa gives it the capacity to use its wealth and success for creating greater success. It's purposeful use of that wealth. Okay? Then the last direction, as far as the compass is concerned, is the northeast, ruled by Ishana. And that Ishana is a name of Shiva. You're going to see these last three Dasamsas, the 8th, 9th, and 10th, are ruled by the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Starting with Shiva, though. Now, Ishana literally means the one who owns and rules what he owns. So it's about ruling and taking care of and owning what you own. So this is not Shiva in a really destructive nature. We know that, you know, Shiva is the destroyer, but Shiva has many faces. That's why a lot of people supplicate to Shiva for things to work out for the good in their life. Okay? Because Shiva is very ready to give his favor. In fact, Shiva gives his favor for things to work out for the good for someone easier than any other divinity. Easier than Vishnu, easier than Brahma. You have to pray a lot harder to get Brahma's attention or Vishnu's attention. Where Shiva is always more ready to give you, you know, answer your prayers. Now, why he does that as a destroyer, my guess is because he knows that time is a destructive force, and it's just a matter of time before he's going to come back and take those things right back. So he's got nothing to lose. He's like, yeah, enjoy it for a while. I'll be back later for it to collect and destroy and take it out of your life. It's going to decay. It's going to end, and he knows it's not a permanent thing. He knows that he has the power of taking it away anytime, and so it's not a big deal for him to give it to you. Whereas the other divinities, when they give something, it's, you know, they don't really have that power to just take it away. They can make you lose it if you lose merit, but they can't just come and take it out of your hands the way Shiva can as the destroyer, as his role of destroying the universe, so that there's room for other things. I think Shiva just is more casual about his gifts because, you know, he can get them back anytime he wants. Okay, meaning he knows those things are just going to be destroyed, and so there's really no real value in them from his point of view. Okay, so Ishana is the aspect of Shiva that helps us take care of things that we own. So this Dasamsa gives the ability to rule over things and thus promote their continual success. So it means we have to rule over things, manage these things, take care of these things, have ownership in these things, and that allows for continual success. Then the 9th of an odd Rashi and the 2nd of an even is ruled by Padmaja, a name of Vishnu, Brahma. It means lotus born. Brahma is considered to be born on a lotus. And this rules the zenith, the high above direction. So Brahma, of course, is the creator who created the three worlds. The three worlds are the earth, the heavens, where the devas live, and the netherlands, which is considered to be inside the earth, where the demons live. Okay? I always think that's funny, the Netherlands, you know, where all those Dutch students of ours live, right? Okay, no, not that Netherlands. The Netherlands up inside the earth where the demons live. So obviously this is a very creative Dasamsa. Brahma, the creator, rules it, right? So, this Dasamsa gives a creative impulse. It's through creating that we find success. Okay, simple. I want to step back to the Ashana, the Shiva Dasamsa. Ashana is Shiva as the ruler, the owner. And as an owner, you have the right to destroy something, right? You're allowed to destroy what you own with no repercussions. And Shiva is seen as the owner, Ishana, the ruler, the owner, the possessor of the stuff. So that inherently gives him the right to crumple it up and throw it in the wastebasket whenever he wants. So one thing I forgot to mention about this direction, or this Dasamsa, the Ashana Dasamsa, is that as owning something, you're allowed to get rid of it as you will. But this Dasamsa is about using what you own, and yes, transforming it into something becoming better, or something more than you want. So it's having the ownership of one thing and getting rid of it so that you can have success in something else. And you're allowed to do that. So if you inherit a house, and that house lets you have a great education because you get rid of the house, that's this type of thing of destroying something that you own, that you have the right to get rid of, so you can do something else that produces success in your life. Okay? Okay, then the Brahma is that creative one. Then the 10th Dasamsa of an odd and the first of an even is ruled by Ananta, the thousand-headed serpent, Adisesha. Some Hindu texts like to give this direction to Vishnu. But Vishnu and Ananta are sort of inseparable. You can look at Ananta as Vishnu's fingers stretched out into the world. Now, Ananta is a thousand-headed serpent that canopies Vishnu. So Vishnu is always seen on this serpent with all these cobra heads. Usually you just see a few of them, but there's 1,000 of these cobra heads. And during cosmic dissolution, which is when the age of Brahma ends and Brahma dies, the whole universe collapses, and there's nothing in existence. But Vishnu, who's the preserver, preserves all the seed tendencies left over from the previous cycle of creation, the previous age of Brahma, so that when the new age of Brahma begins, all those seed tendencies are in place for creation to begin again. And at that time, Adisesha pulls the universe in and all those seed tendencies and encompasses Vishnu and protects Vishnu with his 1,000 heads and canopies Vishnu, so Vishnu survives the dissolution and awakens to have all the seed tendency required for the next cycle of creation. And so these two are like have an intertwined role. They're always together, and even in mythology they incarnate together. So Lord Rama was the incarnation of Vishnu, but Lakshman, Rama's brother, who did most of so many things, was really in many ways more amazing in his deeds than Lord Rama, was Adisesha or Ananta. Then in the Krishna era, Krishna was the incarnation of Vishnu, and Balarama was considered an incarnation of Adisesha or Ananta. So we see these two oftentimes coming to Earth simultaneously, so they're very much a united pair. There's not much difference between saying an Ananta Dasamsa and a Vishnu Dasamsa, but there's a subtlety to it. There's a reason we should use the Parashara given names and not the names that other Hindu texts might give. Because Ananta is that which remains. It's what's left over that you get to keep at the end. And this is the last Dasamsa, right? It's the ending Dasamsa. This is the great thing you get to hold on to and keep after everything is over. And that's the importance of this Ananta thing. It's also the remains that you have, the things you have that you get to use to produce success. Whatever remains is what you get to use in the future. And that's what this Dasamsa represents. This Dasamsa gives the ability to give great success working with what one already has available to them. Okay? You have it, it's available to you. It's something that's remained in your possession or in your keep that you can use to create further success, or that you can just enjoy as success. Okay? So I'll give you an idea of what these deities sort of give. Now, the important thing to remember, there's no good or bad deities. Rakshasa is not a bad Dasamsa to have your planet in. There's no such thing as a bad or good Dasamsa, per se. The Dasamsa deities represent the path to success. Indra, we find success by conquering. Or, if the planet's in a bad Lajitati Avashta, we don't have success because we're unable to conquer. Agni's Dasamsa gives success and lets us do great things because our ability to connect to everything and the ability to find support and the ability to make sacrifices necessary to have that connectivity and support. Okay? And of course, having connectivity with people to help you with things means you have to sacrifice a lot of your egocentric desires right away. But if the planet in the Agni Dasamsa is in a bad Lajitati Avashta, we don't have success because we're unable to find that connectivity and support. The Yama Dasamsa gives success through discipline, okay, and self-control. Or it doesn't give success when a planet's in bad Lajitati Avashta because the person is unable to be disciplined or self-controlled. The lack of discipline could ruin things. The Rakshasa Dasamsa, when the planet's in a good Lajitati Avashta, gives success because the person is able to destroy their inhibitions, they're able to destroy pressures from other people that are holding them back, they're able to break free from the constraints of their society, their parents and friends and peers, to do what they believe is the great thing they're meant to do. Or if it's in a bad Lajitati Avashta, they're not able to make that break, and therefore they do nothing great. The Varuna Dasamsa helps a person have success because they envision that success, and by envisioning it, they attract it to them and work and simultaneously work towards it because the vision is what encompasses their mind. If, however, the planet is in a bad Lajitati Avashta in the Varuna Dasamsa, the person is unable to maintain that vision and that consciousness of the great thing they want to do. So, of course, nothing great will happen. Okay? Then the wind Dasamsa is about making changes. The changes that are required to make success. Or if it's in a bad Lajitati Avashta, a person doesn't have the strength to make the changes, and therefore they have no success. Kubera is about managing our wealth and resources in a way that provides greater success. If the planet's in a good Lajitati Avashta, if it's in a bad Lajitati Avashta, the Kubera Dasamsa shows misuse of wealth, mismanagement of wealth, and therefore no success. The Ashana Dasamsa, ruled by Shiva Ashana, gives success because the person's able to use what they own in such a way to promote and produce greater success and to maintain success, and to get rid of the things that they own that are no longer needed in order to acquire what they need to have success, to make those transitions from one level of success to another, from having one thing to creating something else. A planet in a bad Lajitati Avashta in the Ashana, the Samsha, shows someone who gets rid of things in a way that's unproductive, like they don't have a use for something, so they just forget about it, instead of seeing the possibilities of owning that thing and how that can help them reach the next goal. Okay? Or simply through mismanaging the things they own, they're not able to make a success. Then the Zenith Padmaja Dasamsa helps a person manifest things through their creativity, obviously Brahma, right? The ability to create. And however, if the planet in that Lajitati, in that Dasamsa is in a bad Lajitati Avashta, then the person simply is not able to be creative enough to make the success. Lack of creativity, or creativity that's just not suitable, and therefore doesn't have success. The Ananta Dasamsa finds success if a person uses what they have in a wise way, or if they find success in the things that they're left with, or if they take what they're left with and use it productively. But if a person has this in a bad Lajitati Avashta, the planet in that Ananta Dasamsa is in a bad Lajitati Avashta, then the person won't appreciate the value of what they have, what's left to them, or they'll squander it, or they'll use it in ways that are not appropriate. Okay? Now, so that's the deities. The other thing we have the planetary lords of the directions. Okay? Now, we can see there's a relationship to all these lords and the type of success we can find. For instance, the sun is Indra. The sun gives that ability to conquer. You know, he's the king who conquers, who rules as a result of conquering his territory. He's a Kshatriya who goes in there and marches forward and conquers things. So the sun and Indra have this quality. Now this connectivity of Agni is related to the connectivity of Venus, which is that relationship-centered planet that helps us have empathy and compassion for other things. Okay? And also our ability to be receptive and making connections is Venus. Mars gives self-discipline. Mars is the brahmachari, the disciplined student. So we see that related to Yama. Rahu rules the southwest, and Rahu is doing untraditional things, and that's the power of the Rakshasa Dasamsa, to break free from traditions and hang-ups within ourselves and without ourselves in order to do great things. Varuna is related to the same direction as Saturn is. Varuna helps us envision in our consciousness the great things we hope to do. A good Saturn helps us with that because it keeps us from getting depressed. And when we get depressed, when we feel bad, we lose our vision. And that's why depressed people have no vision, and therefore people with no vision tend to be depressed more readily. But some people don't have vision, but they're just happy. They're just happy people. But a person who doesn't get depressed can have vision. So a strong Saturn, which keeps us from being depressed, which helps us deal with the hardships of life, helps us maintain that vision, so that every time we get a little ache or pain or something little hurts our little hearts, our vision doesn't fall apart. So Saturn is sort of, we can say, is the protector of our vision. It gives us the confidence and self-esteem when strong in the detachment to manifest that vision. A weak Saturn gives so many worries and makes us feel so stressed by everything that happens that we can't maintain that vision. Maruta, the god of change. Well, the planet of change is the moon. The moon is fickle and changeable and adaptable, and likes to evolve and change according to circumstances. That's what this Maruta deity wants to do. Management of wealth is Mercury. Mercury rules cash, and money and barter and trade. So we see the relationship between Kubera and Mercury, who rules that direction. And Jupiter, of course, is Shiva is the presiding deity of Jupiter. Okay, Jupiter gives wealth as well, as this Septamsha or this Dasamsa indicates. It's owning things. It's owning things. The things you own has a lot to do with Jupiter, and that's your collective wealth and the ability to grow with that. Then the zenith and nadir, we don't have planetary directions for those. Some sources I've seen, I don't know where they come from, give Ketu to the zenith and the Lagna to the to down there. But we really don't have an astrological authority on what planet to give to those directions, really. Okay? And before I talk more about those, I want to explain these directions, these other planets, a little more. Okay, so we can understand these in the context of these planets more. These planets don't necessarily rule those directions. What they do is they rule the slopes of that direction. So imagine you're on this mountain, right? It's like a cone. And on the very tippy top of this mountain, that just peaks up like this. So you're standing there, whenever you look around you, you've got a slope. It all slopes towards the ground, all around you. Sloping towards the east is where this is the way to the sun. Okay? So if you want anything to do with the sun, you want to go down the east slope. If you want something in your life to do with Saturn, you go down the Saturn slope, which is the west slope. If you want something Mars in your life, you go down the south slope. Okay? So the slope is basically the easiest way to get anything. So the easiest way to get something from the sun is the slope towards the east direction. So if you want sun things in your life, live in a place where the land slopes towards the east. And then you're going to roll towards the sun in your daily life. If you want Saturn things in your life, live on a property where that slopes towards the west. And then you are going to find yourself rolling more readily into Saturn things. So whatever direction the land we live on is sloping towards, that's the direction, that's what we're going to more readily roll into. So if you go to your friend's house and you take a note of what direction the land's sloping, right away you know, ever since they lived in that place, and as long as they lived in that place, they're going to more readily get a particular planet in their life. Okay? If that's a really good planet in their chart, then those would be nice things to embrace. If that's a terrible planet in their chart, then they're going to find living there very, very stressful. Okay? So that's a very basic sort of Vastu astrological concept. In general, in Vastu, they don't want your property sloping towards the west because you don't really want Saturn in your life too much. And also, they don't want your property sloping towards the south, which is the direction of Mars. Okay, they try to keep you away from those troubling planets. But the truth is, you find a lot of successful people living on houses that are sloping in these directions. So we have to look at a little wider part of view that if you want to make success with Mars, sloping towards the south may just be ideal. Okay, depending on what you want in your life. So these planets represent these slopes, the direction that something is most readily acquired. That's what a slope is, because then you don't have gravity against you, right? And gravity's a power of the Earth. And on life, Earth is hard. And what makes Earth unique? Gravity, right? Physical, tangible things have gravity. So, by working with gravity, life on Earth can get easier. So it's always easier to get things if you're sloping towards the direction gravity is pulling you, okay? So Earth, or gravity, Earth, same thing, it pulls us towards the sun if we're going east on the downhill. Pulls us towards Mars if we're going south on the downhill, and so on. Now these two directions, the zenith and nadir, they're not slopes. You know, they're not land which always slopes. They're either straight up or straight down. And those don't exist on the surface of Earth where we live. Where we live as humans, there's no straight up or straight down. Now I know you can say with those new helicopters, sure, we got straight up. And we can dig a hole and go straight down. But that's really sort of an abnormal thing. You know, even when we go up in the plane, we eventually go left or right. We eventually go a direction. Even, then we've got outer space. And yeah, outer space is sort of different. We definitely go up. But at that point, we're leaving our solar system, which means we're leaving our atmosphere, we're leaving our astrology behind. So I think that's why these planetary, or these directions haven't really had planets related to them. Okay? What I find interesting to do sometimes is the zenith is the midheaven cusp, which is your 10th cusp. And the nadir is your 4th cusp. So it's interesting to look at the zenith and nadir when you have planets in these points to see just how robust those things can be. Okay? So the 4th in the Dasamsa, we could say, is going to let us get an idea of how capable Ananta is. And the 10th in the Dasamsa will let us see just how creative we can be. And that becomes important when we got planets in these Dasamsas. Okay? So for these other 8 directions, though, we can just use this to, understand that if I'm running Jupiter Dasha, and Jupiter's in the Indra Dasamsa, in my Jupiter Dasha, I'm probably going to find more sun things coming into my life, for good or bad, depending on how good my sun and Jupiter are. Okay? And that living my Jupiter Dasha would, I'm just saying hypothetically, I'm not saying my Jupiter's in the Indra Dasamsa or anything, but living my Dasamsa, or a person living their Dasamsa with Jupiter in the Indra Dasamsa, would find the things they do in their life drawing them more towards having solar things in their life. Okay? So we always can look at these planetary lords of the Dasamsas as well to get another detail about that. So let's say we got a powerful Raj Yoga, and the planet's going to give lots of success. If it's in the Dasamsa of the Sun, it's more likely to give political power than, say, in the Dasamsa of Saturn. or something, all other factors equal. So we can just kind of use that to see more detail of where something's coming from. Okay, did I cover everything? All right. We covered the directions, the deities, and the planets. So that's 3 parts of information we get from this. Now, using these directions is what I find to be one of the most enjoyable parts of using the Dasamsa. It's a good way to get some extra detail, the detail of from where. So, whatever your dasha, antradasha lord is, the Dasamsa rules the great things. So, it's the planet's position in the Dasamsa that represents the greatest things that are going to happen to you during that dasha. Okay? Whatever direction that planet relates to, and by its placement in the Dasamsa, the great thing will tend to be from that direction. So if the best thing that happens to you in your Venus dasha is marriage, let's say that's the best thing that happens to you, it's the most important best thing, then you can look at your Venus dasha and say Venus is in the east. Well, that means you went east and met your woman or your spouse, or your woman or spouse came from the east. Maybe she came from Asia or something. Or maybe you went east to Asia. Or maybe you got involved in Asian studies in your college, in Eastern studies, and met a girl studying Eastern studies. But somehow the east is an essential ingredient there. So you can just kind of see where things come from. If you say you lived in 5 places during your Venus dasha, and say Venus is in the Indra Dasamsa, so east is the Pramit direction. Out of those 5 places you live, the place that is going to have been most influential to your growth and upbringing during that Venus dasha was going to be the place that was east. Okay? And always look at these directions from your place of birth usually. Like put your place of birth right here. Now, so it's fun to kind of get an idea of directions. That where you're doing great things or where the great thing comes from. Then the zenith direction is not really a direction on Earth. It's heavenly direction. And when we walk around on Earth, we're looking left and we're looking right and we're looking around, but we don't ever go, I'm going to go up there, right? We don't really look up there. Like when we're confused about where am I going to do, we go like this. We do look down or we look this way. We don't go, well, I think I'll go up there. Going up there is not really a realistic expectation we have. So we don't look to go in that direction, usually. We might have moments where we lay on our backs and look at the stars and wish we were going up there. But in our daily lives, we're always looking around us, where should I go? And then sometimes we just look down and go, I don't know where to go. Okay? That's all very symbolic of the Dasamsa. When we look around, we look at all of our possibilities, all the different directions we can go. So say we're trying to walk through New York City, right? And it's all busy, and we're trying to get to a certain building, we're looking at our map, and we're trying to find the best direction to go, and we're going left and right, north, south, east, and finally we get to where we're meant to go. Okay. And we do that symbolically in everything we do in life. We make our choices to see what direction we should go. Then sometimes we don't really know where to go, and we're confused, and we tend to look down. And looking down means we're reassessing everything. Maybe even look down at the map. Like when you're driving, you look down at the map, right? It's the idea of you're reassessing the situation. That's what this Ananta Dasamsa is about. It's what you have available to you. You're reassessing the situation to make for the best decision. So we do look down to look for guidance. And we look into what we have available to us. What's left for us to use. Okay, that's the direction this Ananta gives things from the things we have available to us. Something we know is there, or always felt was there, or have a familiarity with, or somehow we just expect. But we rarely look up, We look up in hope sometimes, like a distant hope. But we don't really look up in a concrete way. This Brahma direction gives things from sources we would have never usually have imagined. We would have never thought of or contemplated or seen as a possibility. It's like a surprise. Boom. It's a new, creative, Brahma pops up and gives it to you, source. So this is an unexpected source that you wouldn't have been able to guess or envision generally. Okay, that's the direction this gives from. So up and down directions don't give a direction as far as east and west, but a source that's more something we know about, which is the nadir direction, something we're standing on, right? Or a source we really haven't contemplated the possibility of. And so planets in the Brahma Dasamsa can give for really surprisingly unique experiences that you go, whoa, I can't believe that ever happened, you know? You just couldn't have envisioned it. So you can use these 10 directions to see the sources of things, the directional source and also the up and down source, symbolically speaking. And that's a really fun use of this Dasamsa. Okay? And again, you don't have to just use it based on the Dasamsa placements of planets, but say your Venus, which is relationships, is in a particular Dasamsa, your spouse might come from that direction, or you might meet her in that direction. But Venus doesn't have to rule the 7th in the Dasamsa to do that. Your 7th lord in the Dasamsa, or in the Rashi chart, if that's the dasha you get married under, the Dasamsa it's in will help you see the direction your spouse comes from. If you get married, if you meet your spouse under the 7th lord in the Dasamsa, that's, you take that 7th lord, that 7th lord in the Saptamsha, say you meet your wife under the 7th lord in the Saptamsha, you can look at that Saptamsha lord and see it in the Dasamsha and see what direction it's related to. And that can give you the direction that you met your spouse from. So the thumb rule is the most important thing to happen to you during a dasha bhukti will generally come from the direction indicated by the Dasamsha. And that planet can rule many things and give many great things. But the direction is going to be from that Dasamsha indicated direction usually. Okay? So we'll play around with this in the examples and you can see how that works. Okay, that's enough for this class, and we'll have another video on the Vargas, or the Bhavas and Grahas to look forward to in the Dasamsa. Okay, thank you.